Howdy everyone, and welcome back to the Luna Geeks Out channel. Today, exciting day, we have finally reached the title track of Sleep Token's new album, Take Me Back to Eden. Why is my hair getting in my face? This is exciting for several reasons. One, it's Sleep Token. It's going to be really good. Two, it has some of my favorite lyrics off of the album. Three, we finally got a visualizer again, which is great. Four, I don't need to be counting on this hand as well. 4, it is the longest track off the album, so I'm sure there's going to be some wild progression throughout this. And 5, just a little pleasant bonus on top of everything else, I suppose. If y'all saw the last video, you already heard this. But this song comes with praise by She from Accident, who always shares some really good music. A song posted by her is going to be fantastic. So, lots of good stuff coming together with this one to make it probably something incredible. So, with that said, I'm very excited to check this one out. Without further ado, let's hop into it. Because you've got some, like, nature sound sampled in. Very atmospheric keyboards. Once again, almost giving me, like, some Minecraft vibes. One of the tracks off of there is similar. Yeah, the sampling on this album has been incredible so far. Some really nice guitar right there. That, like, the handle for the scythe is a spine. That's pretty cool right there. That is high vocals right there. That is some incredible riffing. Chunky as well, which makes me very happy.
Well, yeah, I spit blood when I wake up. Sink porcelain stain, choking up brain matter and makeup. Just 2 days since the mainframe went down and I'm still messed up. Room feels like a meat freezer, I dangling like cold cuts. Missed calls, answer phones from people I just don't trust. Mirror talk, fake love, but I'll take a pound of your flesh before you take a piece of my pay stub. White roses, black doves, godmother, rise up. I
So,
I guess it goes to show, does it not, that we've no idea what we've got until we lose it.
this is...
And no amount of love will keep it around.
This all makes sense
We don't choose
in a bit, but like... This is the Sleep Token song.
what's got its teeth in me, but I'm about to bite back in anger. No amount of self-fury will bring back the glory of innocence.
Well, that guitar back there is like nasty, and I love it. Okay, actually really good fade out this time. I did not like the fade out on the apparition. I am loving the fade out here. That is perfect. What an end to that song. I was like, okay, so I was like, they're bringing in some different elements from all the different songs, which is why this is like the Sleep Token track, right? It had a little bit of everything that they've done in here. It's like, okay, so we're bringing in a little bit of everything. It's like, okay, so some of the guitar, it has that really harsh nature that we got in Vor, and then the end comes in. That was the Vor section right there. Okay, that was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Man, longest song on the album. I knew there's gonna be some cool shifting around and stuff. That greatly exceeded my expectations. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess let's go on and shift into the lyrical analysis before we hop into talking about the music, even though I really want to hop into talking about the music. But yeah, let's go through this. Starting in verse 1, of course, I dream in phosphorescence is it is essentially, it ties back to the heavy idea of dreams we've seen throughout this album. Most specific, I say throughout this album, throughout their discography, but most heavily in the apparition off of this album. But it ties to the ideas we saw there that their dreams really provide sort of a light in the dark, right? So essentially, Vessel's dreams are providing this light in the dark, if you will, this relief, this positivity, so on and so forth, in the midst of all of their struggles, which I think ties into both the more relationship kind of aspects we see within their music, right? Where it's an escape from reality, but also ties into the more spiritual and religious aspects with the literal sleep. And how that ties into everything. So good sort of double meaning you can get there. Bleed through spaces, blood coming back in. I think that ties into the next part. See you drifting past the fog. Again, ties back to the apparition, these spaces in their head, the fog of dreams drifting through it. So that this person who's just present there a bit, but no one told you where to go. To me, calls back to Are You Really Okay? That idea of them straying from the path a bit, something like that. We dive through crystal waters. The annotation here says this is a callback to Fall For Me. In a city of ice, there are burning cathedrals. Honestly, I just don't see that. I think it more ties into perfect oceans, so oceans that have crystallized, have hardened, but have become perfect in a sense, which I think ties into some of the ideas we see throughout their discography of course, ocean imagery very strong on This Place Will Become Your Tomb, but that idea of, the hardships and the struggles perhaps creating something more, something greater. We get ideas like that in their stuff. But no one told me not to breathe, and now the weightlessness recedes. Ties into, I forget if it's telomeres or high water, but the line, I can hold my breath forever. A bit of a callback to that. The weightlessness recedes is someone says this is a callback to Atlantic. The specific line, come on, open up. The specific line to wasteland when the oceans recede, something along those lines perhaps. The idea I'm grabbing there is essentially an idea of drowning. No one told them to hold their breath, no one guided them through this, and so they're drowning. As they're drowning, the weightlessness that's felt in the water gives way to sort of the pressure as the life goes away from them. Is essentially what I'm there. But I also first thought of levitate, weightless levitating above them. So perhaps an idea that this person is losing the position they have over Vessel, but also perhaps you're going to watch me ascend off of this album, Vessel ascending, and the weightlessness there is receding, so he's coming back down. But I think there's sort of a double idea we can get here of both coming back down to earth, back down to reality, but also drowning, becoming overcome, giving into the pressure, that kind of thing as well. Into the chorus, we have my favorite line that they have ever written. My, those eyes like fire. I'm a winged insect, you're a funeral pyre. So, it's a play off of either like a moth to a flame, that old saying right there. But we get the first thing, those eyes like fire. So, once again, I'm gonna say this line for however many times it's been, it keeps coming up in songs as of late. The old saying, eyes are the window to the soul. So those eyes are like fire, that destruction was within that person, drawing them in. I'm a winged insect, of course, a moth, that's the thing we always think of, but to me the usage of insect creates something a bit more disgusting, a bit more brutal. I think of like a praying mantis, or perhaps a cockroach. I think of the creature for vor, all those spikes, that hard shell, that sort of thin, almost bony appearance. Something a bit more dark or disgusting, I think. And I think that ties into sort of the self-image Vessel has that we've seen throughout some of their stuff, where there is a bit of self-loathing and stuff. You're a funeral pyre. So not just a flame, a funeral pyre, a fire used at death to essentially tear down the body, which is what Vessel is being drawn towards and what exists within this person drawing them in. Come now, bite through these wires. Annotation here mentions that this is a reference to a line in the next song, Euclid, just running forwards a life like wires. So the wires are Vessel's life, that's what's being bit through, what's being torn apart. I'm a waking hell and the gods grow tired. We get a couple callbacks here. We get a callback to high water. It seems my hell is your high water. And in the song off of Sundowning Gods, the line, I see the gods avert their gaze from me. My fucking form is but a wreck beneath them. Hopefully I have that right in my head. We're getting callbacks there. Essentially, the idea is, in the midst of these struggles that Vessel is going through, he's feeling abandoned. Like, if there is some higher power out there, be that the Christian god or sleep that we see throughout their lyrics, or any number of other deities out there, that the vessel has been abandoned by them, that there is no longer any force looking out for them. They tire of him, they tire of his struggle, that kind of thing. So an idea of being abandoned, essentially, is the deepest idea there of being abandoned in the midst of their struggles. Reset my patient violence along both lines of a pathway higher. Do get a bit of a higher reference, very obvious with higher, but, you know, the violence, the line, we just can't resist the violence, as mentioned in the annotation, but reset, go back to once was, a very big idea throughout the album, but very big idea in this song specifically. But what we're seeing there is resetting along both lines of a pathway. I'm getting the idea of, you know, one that's separate down the middle. A road's what's coming to mind, which isn't necessarily a pathway, but kind of the same function, where, you know, on one side going one way, on the other side going the other way. So reset along both lines, so the choice to go whichever way they want, whichever way is necessary. So give a reset and options for change, essentially. And then grow back your sharpest teeth. You know my desire ties back into the offering. I'm sure I don't need to expand much upon that, but, you know, teeth, bite, all that is something Vessel clearly wants, especially from that song. Very common imagery within their music. Into the refrain, I will travel far beyond the path of reason. The idea that there's an element of Vessel somewhat losing his mind, as mentioned in the annotation here, but going beyond what is expected, what is reasonable, going to something more, in the hopes to go back to Eden. Take me back to Eden, repeated 3 times. Eden, of course, is the biblical paradise, if you will, that we had at the very beginning, that humanity was cast out of due to the fall, and now it is impossible to go back there. Vessel is designed to return to that, return to what once was, and return to what can no longer be, instead of looking forwards to what still can be and what is coming. So essentially what we're seeing within this song, summed up by that bit right there, is just a desire for what once was. And I'll expand upon the different interpretations that could be had there later on, but that is some powerful stuff right there. Verse 2, well, yeah, I spit blood when I wake up. I think there is perhaps a bit of an Are You Really Okay callback there, right? You woke me up one night dripping crimson on the carpet. But also, especially when combined with the next bit, sink porcelain stained, choking up brain matter and makeup, it's a callback to Nazareth, right? We get the violence in there. Let's load the gun, make her eat the tape in the bathroom mirror, see if she can guess what a hollow point does to a naked body, if I'm remembering the order correctly there. We're getting that idea there. The choking up brain matter and makeup, I think, is a callback to kind of what we saw in Ascensionism, with the lipstick, chemtrails, red flags, pink nails. This juxtaposition of, you know, something good, something beautiful, versus something very dark, is essentially what I'm grabbing there. Just 2 days since the mainframe went down and I'm still messed up. We're getting a callback to that more manufactured element that I talked about in Ascensionism, but the idea that as things are crashing down, Vessel is... It's having a major effect on them. The annotation here does mention the line in Aqua Regia, these days I'm a circuit board, something that I didn't actually notice until I, for whatever reason, clicked on this line right now, and that actually makes a lot of sense. It makes it a bit more personal here. The next line, the one that people are somewhat clowning on from what I've seen, room feels like a meat freezer I dangle in like cold cuts. And this was a line that didn't quite make sense to me. It's like, I don't get why people are so, not angry about this one, people are so perhaps disappointed by this line. It's like, yeah, I don't get that, but it didn't make sense to me. Until I would credit the person who saw this, but I don't, or credit the person who said this, but I cannot remember where I saw it or who said it, unfortunately. But someone pointed out the idea that, you know, A meat freezer, room feels like a meat freezer, freezer cold, of course cold. I don't think I need to expand upon sort of the deeper meaning behind that idea, the emotional elements of that, but a meat freezer, something beyond just a room that's a bit chilly. I dangle in like cold cuts. So Vessel is comparing himself to the meat that hangs in there, these animal carcasses, this soulless flesh. That is what Vessel feels like. And again, I feel like there's an idea like in the previous track, you've got your hooks in me, hung up on that meat hook in there. So a different idea is wrapped up in that. But once you kind of figure out what is happening in that line, it's actually a really good one. It's just one that folks weren't able to get. I'll say, to put it a bit charitably, perhaps. Missed calls, answer phones from people I don't trust. So missed calls, I think, is an idea of almost cutting themselves off, a bit like what we were talking about last time with Rain, with the Stoic statue line in there. I answer phones from people I don't trust. I forget which song it was, but one of the ones on this album, maybe The Apparition, maybe Ascensionism, one of those two, I want to say, there's an idea of betrayal in there. So here I'm seeing with the aftermath of that idea that after having been betrayed, how do they know they can trust anyone? And so we get that idea there. Mirror talk, fake love. Do you wish that you loved me? Call back right there. We get the idea of my reflection just won't smile back at me like I know it should. Do you wish that you loved me? So here, I think this is very clear, more personal than, I still just don't see, do you wish that you loved me being Vessel talking to himself. We see elements of, the personal impact it had, but it still feels like talking to the subject of their music and talking about the effect that they had on Vessel. Here, I do see that, mirror talk, fake love ties into the ideas I mentioned of self-loathing and stuff. The love that they try to feel for themselves is fake, something along those lines. But I'll take a pound of your flesh before you take a piece of my pay stub. The annotation here mentioned that this is a reference to the Shakespeare story Merchant of Venice, where basically a guy takes a loan and he's told, if you can't pay this back, we're going to take a pound of your flesh closest to your heart, I believe the annotation said. I'll be honest, I'm not understanding it. I saw someone say that there's a good chance this is a very literal, very personal thing directed at a very specific person that we just can't understand, and I'm happy to believe that, so I don't have to think about that line too much more because I cannot grab anything from it, and I am sorry for that. I do try to dive into this stuff as best as I can, but there are some lines that just don't do it for me. White roses, black doves. The annotation mentions that this is a juxtaposition of ideas of like goodness and innocence versus like death and change and stuff like that. I think just white versus black, a very commonly seen idea of good versus evil. It is a easy enough a juxtaposition to understand. Roses and doves calls to mind the idea of, like roses at, say, a wedding, doves released at a funeral, something along those lines. So we get a lot of different ideas there. But if the annotation is correct, if we look at those ideas of purity, loyalty, and innocence, like it says for the white rose, death, change, transformation, bad luck, and sadness, like it says for the dove, that is some very appropriate imagery here. Godmother, rise up, I need you to see me for what I have become. So, there's different layers within this. Godmother, of course, I think is a very clear reference to sleep, so perhaps we get the idea of Vessel calling out to sleep and saying, look at me, look at what you have done to me, something like that. One of the comments on the annotation here says that this is Vessel essentially calling out to their mother, but it's godmother. Those are not the same thing. So I think instead it's an idea of a maternal figure. So it's an idea of Vessel calling out to someone who cares for them, someone who is there for them, to support them during this hard time, essentially. It is the idea I'm getting there on that more almost literal kind of sense, if you will. And again, everything is served through heavy metaphor. Back into the chorus, nothing new to say on that. Into verse 3, I guess it goes to show, does it not, that we've no idea what we've got until we lose it. So the idea that looking back on this relationship that once was, now that it's over, they realize what it actually was, and there was something that couldn't be seen during the relationship, and no amount of love will keep it around if we don't choose it. The idea of it fully being over, that this love that they had was meaningless in the face of the darker parts of the relationship, and it was something they didn't choose, perhaps. I'm also, now that I think about it, getting callbacks to Hey Ya. We had callbacks to I Want to Dance with Somebody earlier on the album. Now we're getting a callback to that. They say nothing lasts forever, so what makes love the exception? I believe the line was. I'm getting a connection there. Just the idea of a failing relationship in that song. Anyways, into the next bit, and I don't know what's got its teeth in me, so teeth biting very common on this album. Of course, Vessel's desire for that as well, something you saw in this very common sound, very common in their discography. let me rephrase that. But I'm about to bite back in anger. Vessel has finally had enough, trying to fight back against this pain, biting back in anger, striking out in hopes to essentially protect themselves. No amount of self-sought fury, so the pain that they have sought out, that we've seen throughout their discography, will bring back the glory of innocence. Essentially just an idea that after everything, they have been changed, they have been damaged, and it has been irreparably so. That there is, bring back the glory of innocence, there's no going back to that. Of course, again, post-chorus, this was kind of hidden away in the background of the music, so you may have missed it. But when we were made, I know it was no accident. You know my desire. We were tangled up like branches in a flood. So, chokehold with a little bit of extra stuff in there. Going back to what we saw at the beginning of this, essentially going back to the very beginning of the ideas of Sleep Token. They were made for each other, but brought together through violence, essentially. Tangled up like branches in a flood. And then finally at the end, I've traveled far beyond the path of reason. Take me back to Eden, take me back to Eden. And so essentially the idea we're seeing in this song is this desire to go back to what once was. And we have, I think, three interpretations that can be had here, right? We have one, the more, shall we say, religious interpretation. This is almost a literal sort of biblical Eden, this past paradise, a desire to go back to that. We have the idea that this is a desire to go back to the relationship, to what once was there, to the peace that they once had, the love that they once had. Certainly there's elements in here, but the idea I think we're really grabbing here is a desire for Vessel to go back to who they once were, to not have had to deal with this pain, to go back to the glory of innocence, as it says there. That final section of verse 3, I think, really solidifies that, but the ideas we get in here of this sort of pain and almost self-loathing and everything, I think really support that idea. So, in short, it is a desire to go back to what once was, but there's several different things that Vessel seems to be wanting to go back to. And I don't think it is just, who they once were. I think there very much are elements of that relationship that once was, and I'm sure there are elements of the sleep stuff, which confuses me, to be completely honest. There's a lot of layers within the music, there's a lot of different interpretations that can be had, and of course, since we don't know the actual story, we don't know the actual stuff that Vessel has been through, it's very hard to say, this is definitively what's going on here, right? So, yeah, there's a few different ideas within this, but they all tie into that very broad, but also very specific idea of going back to what used to be. And that, I think, is a beautiful message. Not necessarily a good message. As we've seen, there's a lot of pain wrapped up within that, but beautifully handled would be the way to phrase it. And I think with the idea of how this album goes, closing out the trilogy, but with some of the stuff we'll see in Euclid that I've had spoiled because of the lyrics, not because of the music. I'm still going spoiler-free to that, fortunately. I think that idea of going back to the beginning is a really cool one. And I'm sure those who are big Sleep Token fans who have heard all of this before, heard this album before, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about and why I am so somewhat excited by that. But yes, great lyrics in here. I think easily, I mean, that winged insect line is still my favorite they've had. There's just something about that one that just gets me. But the lyrics as a whole on this album are incredible. Now, I am out of things to say on the lyrics, so to shift into talking about the music, oh, that was incredible. I'll talk about the specific elements, and then we'll talk about how I was saying this is like the Sleep Token song and some of that stuff, because there's a lot to dive into with that. But starting off vocals, they were amazing. We had just the sort of standard clean vocals that, as expected from Vessel, a lot of emotion, some rawness within them. I really liked those. Especially in the chorus. I don't necessarily have much to say. There weren't any major moments I can think of aside from that one bit where we had the highs kick in, but those clean vocals were beautiful. We had the rap section come in. It was Ascensionism brought up to 11. There was some more intensity within that I absolutely loved. And then big surprise coming in at the end with that breakdown. I'm pretty sure I heard someone say there was like that. I'm pretty sure I heard someone say that happened in the song. I had somehow forgotten about it. That came out of nowhere for me, blew me away. That was incredible, and such a harsh, heavy, and powerful end to that track, and the vocal delivery in there. Well, I don't think it had that hard-hitting nature that we got in Vor, especially like the Are You in Pain Like I Am, some of that stuff in there, but I think we definitely got a lot of the similar sort of intensity almost with that. So your vocals on this were incredible. Some of my favorites off of the album. Then the guitar was really, really good. We had some slightly more complex riffing on this, which I was really excited about. I was reading a thread on the Sleep Token subreddit earlier today, someone talking about how the guitar tends to be a little simple in their stuff, and how, hey, maybe bringing in like 4 for some of the writing on that would improve that a bit. Here, I think we saw a bit more of that complexity that person was talking about was lacking. So I was glad to see that, but it was some really good riffs. There's some cool things they did. There's some good heaviness there. I talked about some of that chunk. We had a bit of that sort of black gaze kind of feel that we got in Vor as well at a few points. So the guitar was great in this. There was also the less distorted, almost more acoustic guitar, but I don't think it was an acoustic guitar, but we had that in there as well. That was really nice. A lot of different sounds coming in with the guitar that I absolutely loved. Bass, little subtle in this track. It's been a bit more apparent in some of the others. Really liked it though. It came forth at a lot of different points, had a great sound. I think if we'd brought in a more apparent electronic bass at one of the points where that stuff kind of kicked in, I think that would have brought it up a little bit more, because I think it would have been a good blend with that musical style. But the bass guitar we got was fantastic. The drums, best drums I've heard yet on the album. I was really able to pick up on some of the nuances and complexities here. It really came to the forefront a lot more. A lot of power behind it. Great, just sort of groove to it. We had a little bit of some of the jazzy kind of stuff we've had. We had some of that more pop-style drumming at a few points. But the more expected Sleep Token drumming that came forth was incredible. And I think hands down my favorite off of the album so far. That was incredible. Keyboards, the piano and everything was really nice. More atmospheric at the start. Again, really reminded me of the Minecraft soundtrack. I don't know which song specifically, but there's one that has some somewhat similar guitar in it. Absolutely loved that. Did I say guitar? Piano, keyboards. Absolutely loved that. I can't remember if there were parts where we got a bit more complexity. I think there's a bit that had maybe a little touch of the sort of jazzy stuff we got in Aqua Regia, but not quite. Liked that as well. And then there were some general electronic elements that came in. Those were nice. I think they didn't stand out quite as much on the album. There's one point where we got a bit of that like classic Sleep Token synth kind of sound. But aside from that, didn't stand out quite as much, just more atmosphere around everything else. Finally, I need to talk about the sampling in this track, the animal sounds and everything. That was great. It added this weird, just extra texture into the music that was cool. But the way it blended with the idea of going back to Eden, the Garden of Eden, there's all these animals there, it's perfect, nature living in harmony and everything. Great sort of thematic blend with everything. I thought that was really nice right there. So yeah, that was super cool. So yeah, I'll all the individual elements were really good on this track, but the way everything came together, incredible. And I talked about how this was like the Sleep Token track, because this brought in so many different things. We had elements of pretty much every other song on this album, either lyrically or musically. I talked about some of the callbacks lyrically, so let's shift into the music. There's at one point we had a bit of that almost bell kind of sound that I think was just some weird thing happening with the guitar, but sounds kind of like a bell that we got at the intro to the Summoning. So that popped in at some point. We had the rap from Ascensionism. We had the jazzy piano kind of stuff from Aqua Regia. There was that bit that talked about like the Sleep Token synth. Very much a callback to some of the songs they've had in the past, but also very much reminded me of Granite off of this track. The guitar had, of course, some of the general guitar elements you see throughout their stuff, but it had some of the heaviness in the style that we saw on Rain, and especially towards the end, it brought in the elements of Vor, both the guitar and vocals coming together. That outro is straight out of that track. We had, of course, some lyrical callbacks to Do You Wish That You Loved Me, but I feel like there were some very slight musical callbacks as well with some of the stuff. And then that guitar at the beginning almost feels like it's a callback to Are You Really Okay, with the kind of guitar we were seeing there. I'm sure there's a few more elements within the music that's callbacks to different things they've done, but those are the ones that really stood out to me. I think the final thing I want to say with this is this felt like, I've talked about this a few times with some of the songs. We've felt like we've had a good blend of some of the old and the new here, but this really felt like it was a return to some of their classic stuff. Like, I heard almost musical ideas with the progression and everything that felt straight out of like 2 or like straight out of Jaws, one of those two. So like going way back to pretty much their roots here, but it felt very new as well. Like, this is a song that could only exist on this album at this point in Sleep Token's career. But with this one especially, their roots were very clear in this, and I absolutely love that. And again, I think with that idea we see here of going back to what once was, that I talked about so much in the lyrical analysis, the fact that the song is bringing in so many different elements of things they've done before is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And so, there's not necessarily any specific musical moments in this song. Battery's running low. Good thing I'm wrapping things up. I can't think of any like specific musical moments in this song that are like, yeah, that's the big emotional hard hitter right there. That's the moment that's going to make you cry. That's the moment that's going to stick with you for years. You know, I can't think of anything specific like that, but the way it all comes together, I would certainly say this is probably one of their hardest hitting songs yet. That was absolutely incredible. I am down to 4 minutes of battery life, so I'm going to wrap things up. Fortunately, I am pretty much out of things to say on the song. It was just beautiful, beautiful song. Really is some of their best work yet. I can see why so many people are going crazy for this one. I don't think it's my favorite. I think Atlantic still has that title with High Water following very close behind. But this is definitely my favorite off of the album. I could easily give this one like third favorite song place overall. I don't think I necessarily would. I'd have to look back at everything and do a full ranking, you know, but it's up there. But I am out of things to say on the song, so because I don't want the camera to die, I am going to go ahead and hop into figuring out what we will be checking out next time. There we go, that was a somewhat smooth transition. Anyways, yeah, back up to 60. Good Shark Spin put out a new track, so I had to put that on the list. Let's give it a spin and see what we get. Lots of things I'm hoping for. That was a bit loud. Okay, what are we getting? Oh, just missed one of the ones I'm hoping for. Lipa 2. That's a bit of a shift from Sleep Token, but Lipa, I still know it as Litha, is another band run by Noise from Kanonenfieber. They had an album come out not too long ago, put out a couple singles, so I put those on the list because I really like the stuff I heard off of their debut album, Sisyphus. It's gonna be just some good black metal stuff. I don't think it's gonna be mind-blowing, but it's gonna be some quality music. I think it's gonna come together really tightly. I haven't actually heard much on the album. I only know like one guy who actually listens to that, and I can't remember him actually saying much on it. but I fully expect to enjoy it. It's noise. I've liked the stuff he's put out. So yeah, I'm glad we're finally getting to that. I just kind of wish it had been the one next to it, Everglow / The Fat Rat, because I've really been looking forward to getting to that one, and man, the picker wheel does not want to send it my way. But no, Nipa, I'm happy about that. But I am out of things to say on the song. 2 minutes of battery life left. That's just enough time to do the outro. That is going to do it for the video. So, thank you for watching. Be sure to like if you liked, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below with your own thoughts on the track, any feedback or criticism, or anything you want me to react to. In the description, link to the visualizer, I suppose, so you can go check it out, support the artist. Link to my Sleep Token videos playlist and my rock and metal reactions playlist, so you can check out some similar content from me. And then links to my Discord server, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify playlist of all the songs I've reacted to, at least the ones up on Spotify, and my Linktree, which has all my other stuff in it in case any of that interests y'all. Anyways, like I said, that's going to do it. So once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll be seeing ya.